Welcome everyone to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, where we share stories about education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I am Andrew Ta, president of this eClub. This week, we have a very special program with Rotary International President-elect, Mark Maloney. Mark is a member of the law firm of Blackburn, Maloney, and Schubert, LLC in Decatur, Alabama, practicing in the laws of taxation, estate planning, and agricultural law. A Rotarian since 1980, Mark is a past president of the Rotary Club of Decatur and served as governor of District 6860 in 1989 to 1990. Mark also served as a member of the board of directors of Rotary International in 1999 to 2001, and as the aide to Jonathan Majiyagbe of Nigeria, the president of Rotary International in 2003-2004. Mark was vice chairman of the 2004 Council on Legislation, chairman of the 2010 Council on Legislation, and parliamentarian and trainer for the 2016 Council on Legislation. He served as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International in 2004-2008, and was the vice chairman of the trustees in 2006-2007 and 2007-2008. Mark served four terms as chairman of Rotary International's Operations Review Committee, and was the chairman of the 2014 Sydney Convention Committee and vice chairman of the Rotary Foundation's Future Vision Committee. Mark will serve as president of Rotary International in 2019-2020. He is the recipient of the Citation for Meritorious Service and the Distinguished Service Award presented by the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. Mark's wife, Gay, is an attorney of the same firm and a charter member and past president of the Rotary Club of Decatur Daybreak, Alabama. Both Mark and Gay are Paul Harris Fellows, benefactors, and major donors of the Rotary Foundation and members of its society. They have 2 daughters, one goddaughter, and 2 grandsons. Without further ado, please take it away, Mr. President-elect.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley here this morning. It's 10:30. It's 9:30 here in the Central Time Zone. So I'm pleased that those who have joined the recording of this are up early out in the Pacific Time Zone, and I appreciate your willingness to get up early and join me for this event. When I was approached, the suggestion was that I might talk a little bit about my goals and objectives for the 2019-2020 year. And I'm happy to share those with you. I have 4 priorities for 2019-2020. And I'm already, even though we haven't gotten to the International Assembly and the announcement of the Rotary theme for next year, I am happy to share these priorities because I think these are long-term priorities that we need to keep in mind at all times. And 3 out of the 4 priorities are very inward-looking priorities. First, my number 1 priority is to do everything that we can to grow Rotary, not just in 2019-2020, but to change how we do things so that we can create a different culture and have sustainable growth in the future. And growing Rotary is looking at 2 different aspects, frankly. One aspect, of course, is supporting our clubs as they take advantage of the new permission for innovation and flexibility that was approved by the 2016 Council on Legislation, so that clubs will take advantage of the opportunity to have alternative experiences, maybe different types of membership that have different financial obligations or different connections with the Rotary Club, and to make these clubs attractive to different demographic groups than perhaps we've seen in the past. And this, of course, is very much a club-focused effort. And I hope to convey this message to club presidents as I meet with them during Club Presidents-elect training seminars from February through April next year. Another aspect of this is the forming new Rotary clubs. Here in North America, forming new Rotary clubs has not been a strong emphasis in the last few years. Most people, when they think of forming new Rotary clubs, they are thinking of forming new Rotary clubs in communities where Rotary doesn't exist. But I believe that we must take a different attitude with respect to that, and that we must form new Rotary clubs even in communities where Rotary exists, not only where Rotary exists, where Rotary is thriving. We have Rotary clubs that are very active, but they are serving only a certain segment of the community. And I am encouraging particularly incoming district governors, because after all, it is the responsibility of district governors to form new clubs, to take a look at their districts and see the communities where Rotary exists, where there's an opportunity for forming new Rotary clubs to provide alternative experiences that meet at different times, that meet at different ways. You know, there's nothing in the constitutional documents that says food must be associated with a Rotary meeting. And of course, in the eClub, I suspect that's nothing new to you, but in the traditional club, there always seems to be breakfast or lunch or dinner associated with it, but there's nothing that's required there. And I think that we need to take a look at providing alternative experiences to attract different age groups, different genders, different backgrounds otherwise, and approach communities or segments of the community that we are not otherwise approaching. My second priority for 2019-2020 is to do everything that we can to make Rotary more family friendly. Like Andrew, I was president of my Rotary Club when I was 30 years old. And at that time, had 2 young daughters. When I became president in 1985, our youngest daughter was 1 year old and our older daughter was 3 years old. And people asked me, well, how did you handle being Rotary Club president and just a few years later being Rotary District Governor with young children? We just brought them along. They were as much a part of the Rotary family as they were a part of the Maloney family. And I think it's imperative that we as Rotary clubs, as Rotary districts, even as Rotary International, that we adjust our thinking and adjust the way we conduct meetings, the way we conduct events, the way we conduct service projects, so that family members are welcome and so that we complement family life rather than competing with family life. My third priority is to try to change the culture of Rotary so that it is not only possible, but apparent that you can still be actively engaged in your business or profession and be a Rotary leader. We have many active Rotarians who are very engaged in Rotary, but who feel they cannot serve at the higher levels of leadership, such as district governor, until they retired from their business and profession. And if we want to be attractive to a younger demographic, we must make leadership accessible to a younger demographic. Now, that's not going to happen overnight. In 2019, 2020, it's not going to be boom, that is addressed and we move forward. It's going to take a change in culture, a change in attitudes over many years. So when you look at these first 3 priorities, they're all really focused on growth, on membership, on internal aspects. And in my mind, We will not be measuring success on June 30, 2020, at the end of the Rotary year in which I serve as president. But I think we need to be taking a look at June 30, 2025, or June 30, 2030, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and did the attitudes and the things that we did in 2019, 2020, did they change the culture such that in the future we are able to achieve sustainable growth? Then the fourth of my priorities is something completely different, not so much inward looking, but very much outward looking. As it happens, in June 2020, we will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the signing of the United Nations Charter. And Rotary has been involved with the United Nations since before the United Nations began. You know, we had several dozen Rotarians who were involved in that UN Charter Conference in San Francisco in 1945. And the United Nations has turned to Rotary to look at how to conduct meetings in multiple languages. In the past, they weren't that familiar with it, but Rotary had been doing it for years. And, you know, we're here at a board meeting. I'm in a break right now, but the board of directors meeting is going on, and we're conducting this meeting in English and in Italian, Japanese, Korean, and Portuguese. And we can communicate with the help of interpreters, and the United Nations learned from that. But over the course of the 75 years of the United Nations, Rotary has had a strong relationship and has the highest status as a non-governmental organization with the United Nations. So during 2019-2020, I am proposing that we celebrate and focus on that relationship. We will have what has been the customary traditional Rotary UN Day, and in November 2019, that will be at UN headquarters in New York City. But then in February to May of 2020, we hope to have 3 presidential conferences in locations around the world focusing on Rotary's relationship with specific UN agencies. And finally, we will have a celebration of Rotary's relationship with the United Nations as a pre-convention event on the Friday before the Sunday that the convention opens in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm the lucky guy that gets to host a Rotary International Convention in Hawaii. So I'm looking forward to that very much. So those are my priorities for 2019-2020. I'm sharing those with Rotary leaders around the world now, and we'll talk about them more at the International Assembly in San Diego in January. And it's my pleasure to share them with you today, the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, and I hope that you found them of interest. Thanks very much, Andrew.
Thank you. Those are awesome priorities, by the way. I'll start off the Q&A with a question, and I'll open it up to the other members on the call to see if they have any of their own. First off, I'm kind of curious about your third priority, changing the culture of Rotary so that we can engage in our business in the higher echelons of our business, as well as in Rotary leadership. How are you thinking about how you might change that culture?
Well, let's just take the district perspective, from looking at a Rotary district. Right now, the governor is expected to attend the International Assembly in San Diego to conduct training meetings during the months leading up to his or her term of office, and then to visit every Rotary Club, at least in most districts, it's the tradition to visit every Rotary Club. And, you know, if you have a district with 50 clubs, that means 50 days that you spend at least part of the day away from your business. Then you got to put on a district conference. You'd like to go to the Rotary International Convention. We have got to change the attitudes in the districts. We've got to relieve the governors from many of the responsibilities that they're now undertaking. And this, we have the structure for that through the district leadership plan. We just need to focus more on the role of assistant governors in making that possible. But also, while it's necessary that a governor make contact with each club in the district, it's not necessary that that be an individualized visit. I'd like to suggest, and once again, this is a part of the district leadership plan, that a district governor consider cluster meetings. Instead of visiting each 5 clubs individually, schedule a special event some evening where you have some entertainment, a nice event, a meal or a buffet or a cocktail reception, and maybe a motivational speaker and the governor. And have it be a 2-hour event that's family friendly and brings people together. Maybe you're just grilling out hamburgers someplace. And bring those clubs together, convey the message. The governor, therefore, could still, you know, work till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I mean, depending upon the size of the district. Go to that event and meet with 5 clubs. But there's such a tradition that you go visit each club individually that it is very, very difficult. Governors sometimes just do not, you know, they know how it's been done in their districts and they're reluctant to make any change. But we've got to let them know that this is possible and that it is necessary, not necessarily for their year. They're willing to do it. They took the job with that expectation. But if we are going to attract younger leaders in the future, we've got to change that culture and not having these grumbling past district governors saying, well, we didn't do it that way in our day, and how can you do it anyway? We've got to change that attitude, that we've got to run Rotary just a little more business-like, a little more efficiently, but still have the motivation and the service that we are accustomed to.
Okay. Cool. Right, I'll open it up to our members for any questions or comments. Tina.
Good morning. I'm very curious about how you feel that the district governors and the Rotary hierarchy, how open they are to these kinds of suggestions. I'm very pro-family and have urged my club over the years since being president to, you know, be inclusive. And I always dragged my son along everywhere so everyone knows him, but not everyone feels that way. So I'm just curious how you feel about people's willingness to do this sort of thing. And do you think this is a 10-year project or a 20-year project?
I hope it's a 5-year project.
Oh, that would be great.
But, you know, it's not going to be successful in every district. And you and I are thinking about a North American perspective. You know, in some parts of the world, this is not going to resonate at all.
Right.
And if they're willing to do it and Rotary's growing, well, that's okay. Rotary does not have to be the same around the world. And you know what? It's not the same around the world. And so it's, you know, unfortunately, it's not something that we can just mandate from the top. Even if we mandated it,
right,
some people are going to ignore it.
Right.
It's just a matter of constantly bringing before people the significance of this, the benefits of this, the importance of this. With respect to the family aspect, do you know that through and including the International Assembly that happened this year, at least for the last 20 years, actually not so much in history, but in the last 20 years, children have been forbidden from attending the Rotary International Assembly. When you arrived at the International Assembly, you got your program book, and in the information at the front of the program book, it says, "This is a training meeting. In order to effectively accomplish our mission, children are not allowed at the International Assembly." And that was bad enough. You should have read the Code of Policies on this matter. It made it sound like the children had the plague and that you didn't want to be, within 10 feet of them. Well, that policy didn't exist 28 years ago when I was incoming district governor, and we brought our daughters with us. Of course, back then there was no real program for the spouses, for the partners. And so my wife had plenty of time to be with our daughters. And our daughters gained so much from that experience. Our elder daughter, who at the time was 7 years old, marched in with the governors from Nigeria because I'd taken a group study exchange team there. And, we became friends with another governor couple from Brazil. And since that time, we've been to 2 of their daughters' weddings, and they've been to our elder daughter's wedding. And so the Rotary International Board of Directors has changed the policy to allow children. And it is, it's not a question of if there's room or this sort of thing. If they're children of official participants under the age of 18, they are welcome. Other family members can be registered as observers. Nobody has to give permission. It just happens. And it's taken some adjustment for the staff. They've asked me, okay, if we have a limitation, if we run out of hotel rooms, who gets the first priority? Well, in my mind, the first priority goes to the official participants and their family members. Then we go on to the other categories. So it's, we're going to set the example at the international level and continue on. As you can see, I'm both a lawyer and a past district governor. So you give me a 10-word question and I give you a 500-word answer.
Well, I appreciate that. I think there's nothing better. I've taken my son to 2 international conventions, and it's been fantastic. Yes. And registered him so he could go.
Right. And well, we had our 2 grandsons, ages 3 and 6, at the convention in Toronto this year. And of course, our daughters have attended, they're now in their mid-30s.
Right.
Our daughters have attended something like 13 to 15 conventions.
Wow.
Each. I got to figure that out. I got to figure that out because my wife wants to include that in a speech. So I got to count that out.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tina. All right, Cecilia.
Yes. So you saw me wave my hand when you mentioned the citation, and not to toot my own horn, but I have both of those awards. I got the Distinguished Service earlier this year. So obviously you've had significant with the Rotary Foundation, of which I am a complete unbiased fan.
I hope you're very biased, actually.
Well, there are people who I'm rabidly biased toward the foundation. So anyway, you didn't mention much about your foundation activities in your talk, and so I'm curious what your involvement has been, besides being a trustee, which in itself is enough involvement for almost anyone. And by the way, Raquel who is in our group here, and I are both members of the cadre of technical advisors. So we go running around checking on what's going on.
Very good. Well, I've had a long history with the Rotary Foundation. I started out that I was the club foundation chair in my Rotary Club. We're a large club and have had, several members who have served as district governor. And it was a tradition that the Rotary Foundation chair would be a past district governor who was in the club. And so I served several years and then passed it on to another PDG. And we've just gotten to the point where we've run out of PDGs just this year. And we now have an assistant governor serving as our club foundation chair. And then for many years, I started out as the annual giving chair. The year after I was governor, we had a district foundation chair, but the district did not at that time name all of the different subcommittee chairs. We had a GSE chair and a scholarships chair, but we didn't have an annual funds chair or endowment chair and these sorts of things. And I said to my successor, I'll be the, if you'd like, I will be happy to be the annual giving chair. And he didn't have anybody in mind. He wasn't going to appoint that. And so I worked real hard and we were able to increase our giving to the Rotary Foundation significantly. And then went on to be foundation chair in the district. Then I was a permanent fund advisor when the permanent fund was established, what we now call the endowment fund. Of course, then went on the board and then was the aide to President Jonathan. And then immediately after being the aide to President Jonathan, I was invited to serve on the trustees. During my tenure there, Trustee Bob Scott and I were the oversight committee, and we were addressing stewardship issues around the world. And so I got the opportunity to see projects all over the world. And then immediately after going off the trustees, one day I'm a trustee, the next day I'm appointed to the Future Vision Committee, eventually becoming the vice chair, so had a part in crafting that. And I was the coordinator of the training. You may remember when all the district Rotary Foundation Committee chairs were invited to come to San Diego for a 2-day training for the kickoff of the global rollout of the Future Vision Plan back in 2013. I was the coordinator of that training. And so I've had a lot of involvement with the foundation, and I'm a very keen foundation supporter. And this weekend is going to be an Arch Clump Society induction weekend here in Evanston, and I'm looking forward to participating in those ceremonies as we recognize people who are very supportive of the Rotary Foundation financially. So that's my history.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I've been the grants chair for for 7 of the last 10 years. And then did a little foray into being the committee, DRFCC committee, District Rotary Foundation committee chair. But I have, I loved international involvement, have been involved in many, many projects. And if it all works out, in June, I will be heading to Ethiopia for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer. And when I was like my membership. And so, I will be dragging my Rotary stuff to accept it. So.
Sounds great. I'm sorry I didn't catch all of that. It shows that your network bandwidth is low, and so you are cutting in and out there, Cecilia. Sorry about that.
I just changed my connection, so that should be better.
Okay.
Anyway, so don't know where that all ended up, but basically I'm a dyed in the wool Rotary Foundation person myself, and will continue those activities.
Great.
Awesome. I want to be conscious of your time. I know you're between meetings at the moment. So first off, I'd like to thank you, Mr. President-elect, for taking the time to speak to us this morning. Thank you everyone for attending this meeting. Members, please remember to sign in and leave a comment or question in the discus below. And guests, please feel free to do the same and let us know what you think of our meeting. Mr. President-elect, any last words you'd like to send us off with?
Well, I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate your vision in forming this Rotary Club, this Rotary eClub, and participating through this method. As I talked about earlier, we need to have alternative experiences, and of course, this is an alternative experience, and I'm glad that it works well for you, and it's my pleasure to have been a part of this event and this meeting. And President Barry would be after me if I didn't say, be the inspiration.
Well, certainly. Thank you.